views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
All right, coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, with the recent horrifying United Airlines incident, we wanted to let our viewers know what specific rights they have as an airline passenger. Later on in the show, we'll be breaking down football player Aaron Hernandez's suicide and the rights of those who might take under his estate. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. Hello, and welcome to Today's Verdict, the live and interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet us at Today's Verdict and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Also, make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook at Today's Verdict, and check us out at BronxNet.tv/BronxLegal. And last, but certainly not least, don't forget to tweet me at David Lesh. A few weeks ago, a United Airlines passenger refused to give up his seat on an overbooked flight and was unwillingly kicked off the plane. The passenger was taken to the hospital for treatment after suffering injuries to various parts of his body. Well, today we'll learn more about the rights of an airline passenger with attorney James Broccoli. James, thanks for being here.
Good, glad to be here.
I had no idea that before this incident that the airline has a right to force you to give up a seat if the plane is overbooked. Is that true?
That's correct. The airlines are allowed to overbook flights. We kind of always laugh that it's the only business model of any business that's allowed to do that.
Now, what's the theory behind overselling an airline when you figure all the seats would be sold, but not necessarily?
The theory behind it, according to the airlines, is they have done the research that there's so many percentage of no-shows per flight that they overbook so that they can always fly full. Now,
all right, I get to the airport, and I purchased my ticket months in advance, and this has happened before. You know, you're sitting around, you're waiting in the gate before they actually board, and they say, would anybody like to give up their seat for a certain amount of money, right?
Right.
Is there a minimum? Is there a maximum? How does that even work, by the way?
Okay, so that you introduced this as a passenger rights case,
yes.
and there is, unfortunately, passengers don't have very many rights when dealing with the airlines, unless you're involuntarily denied boarding, meaning in an oversold situation, and there's a federal law. And so this is what's required of the airlines if they're overbooked and they have to bump passengers. If you're involuntarily boarded, denied boarding, if they can't get you to your destination in less than 2 hours, they have to pay you twice the amount of your ticket or up to $675, whatever's more. If it's anything over 2 hours, it's 4 times the price of the ticket, up to $1,350.
And this is by statute, or is this?
It's by statute.
By statute, all right.
Right.
So this can't be negotiated out.
No, and so what the airlines do is, if it's a voluntary, and that's when you, like the scenario you presented where they offer people money at the gate, and they usually don't offer money. And if you're involuntarily, meaning you're kicked off the flight because there's too many, they actually pay you cash. They have to give you a check there on the spot.
Really?
Right.
So you won't leave. You'll leave the gate with an actual check.
Correct.
Okay.
And so what the airlines do is they make those offers, and they don't offer people cash. They always offer people credit for future travel.
Which may be better because they may give you a higher value ticket to someplace else. Isn't that possible? Or not?
Usually not.
Usually not.
No.
Okay.
They're usually, like in this case with the United passenger, I think the highest reported was either $800 or $1,000, which to me doesn't make sense for the airline, because if you're going to have to kick people off and you're going to have to pay $1,350, why not increase your offers?
Absolutely.
Right. So that whole situation with United and the passengers being kicked off was just totally
All
mishandled.
right, so
by
now
the
they make the
airline.
mistake of actually boarding everybody before they ask you to leave. I mean, it really would make more sense to make sure that the plane wasn't overbooked before they sat everybody down. Well, doesn't it?
Right. They should have handled that situation
Okay.
at the gate.
Well, they didn't. So now the issue is you're sitting there, and how do they choose this particular gentleman? Why him?
Sure. Each airline is different, and they have an algorithm. It's a mathematical equation that randomly selects the passengers, but it's not that random. It's usually based on fare class, who's paid the most, who's a frequent flyer, who's part of their medallion program. They try not to separate families. They will not kick off an unaccompanied minor.
That's nice.
Right. And so it's usually that ends up being the person who bought the cheapest ticket, which in many times is someone who purchased their ticket months and months in
Months
advance.
before. You would think it would be the person that purchased it 2 hours before the flight. You could say, well, you're the last person to, you can't get on the bus kind of thing.
Right.
Where the bus is full, you take your Metro card, you can't get on, because you're the last person to step on, let's say. It could be the same thing with an airline, but I guess this algorithm is random.
Every airline is different, and they weigh different categories. And one of the things is time of check-in, but I think
Not the one particular feature. There's so many others.
Right. I think the major feature is how much you paid.
Of course it is. It's
Right.
about the money. All right. So now I'm not getting up. I refuse to give up my seat. What can they do?
In the situation like you saw with United, they'll typically call law enforcement. Legally, you have to give up your seat.
You do have to.
Yes. What many people don't know is most people purchase their tickets online, and they say that you are agreeing to the terms and conditions.
Nobody reads the terms of conditions.
No, you could, because if you
They should,
they should,
but they don't.
but I printed some out today, knowing my appearance was going to be here today, and the United Airlines contract of carriage is the document that it's called.
Yes.
Is 50 pages long.
Yeah. If we read that right now on set, we would probably take up the entire half an hour.
Right. And we're lawyers and we look at legal documents. It's confusing for me. So for the layperson who's not used to that language, it's nonsense.
And what I wonder is, who has the right to pull you off? Is it security that works for the airline, the police that from the city? Is there a certain chain of command? I don't even know who does it.
Sure. It's not going to be the airline. The airline's going to ask you to leave, but they have no rights or authority really to put hands on you if you're not a threat or you're not attacking somebody. So if you just sat there quietly and said, I refuse to move, they will call law enforcement. And law enforcement in the airports is typically local law enforcement, or in the New York area here, you have the Ports Authority Police or the police in the airport, and the police will come and ask you to leave.
All right. By the way, you'd think if he decided that he wasn't getting off, and then the pilot's like, well, we're not leaving. One of the passengers may have actually grabbed him and tried to get him off, or tried to get somebody. And then you wonder if they're liable for another passenger who hurts you because they think you're not leaving because of another passenger. So there's so many reasons why you should never board a plane with too many people. That's what I take out of that.
Right.
I think. All right. Lawsuits.
Sure.
Who's got a lawsuit here?
Obviously the passenger who is
Okay.
injured, and I think he's got a suit both against the airline and against the police department.
All right. Now, there are various causes of action here. I would assume one is for assault. Maybe one might be, I don't know, negligence. What else? Loss of earnings? Did he miss the chance to work on the patients back, wherever he was flying to?
Right. Typically what you see in these cases, again, going back to the contract of carriage, you basically waive the majority of your rights against the airlines. Matter of fact, I noticed today there is a clause in there about the other passengers, It says if
Really?
you're assaulted by another passenger, the airline's not responsible.
Not responsible,
and
because you would think that
Right.
someone's going to get pretty angry.
Right, but typically what we see in these airline cases is the airlines aren't supposed to put their hands on you. So if the airline personnel do, then obviously there would be an assault, a false arrest. And people assume false arrest meaning you have to go to jail, but if you're detained in a place and not able to go.
Have you seen these kinds of cases? I mean, I know that you do a lot of work with crashes, and we're going to get into that in a second. But have you seen these types of cases where people are suing the airlines because they've been assaulted by personnel?
We have, and we've actually handled several cases where people have been arrested. What is scary is if you are in the airline, again, going back to that contracted carriage, can deny you boarding for a number of reasons. And when they do that, they have to fill out a bunch of paperwork, a bunch of reports and everything. If they call law enforcement to come to the gate and say, this passenger has been unruly, and law enforcement takes them away or talks to them, then it's just as if you never came and it's a no-show and no one's the wiser. And we've handled cases where the airline personnel have lied, have told police that passengers have been assaulted. Actually, I had one officer, and I got a very candid answer from him because he had retired. He said that if he's called to the gate, somebody's going to jail.
Wow.
And
it's honest.
It is.
And sad at the same time.
And I've done presentations on this, and I always make the comment that due process ends at gate 15 because you're at a huge disadvantage.
All right. We don't have too much time.
Sure.
Let's talk about some tips, maybe, if you could. A passenger, what would you tell somebody who's going to the airport? Best way to protect themselves financially, protect themselves from an assault on their person. What would you say? Let's say a loved one was flying to Florida, or international. What would you tell them?
The best thing to do when confronted with when the airline personnel is definitely remain calm. Sometimes traveling can be stressful, so try to remain calm. Try to document names. You're not going to win. You're not going to win any argument at the gate.
Do you have a right to get their name, by the way?
Absolutely.
The flight attendant, you say, give me your name, first name, and your last name.
Right.
You have the right for that.
And my tip to that would be, if you're on the airplane, wait until the plane lands and then ask. We have seen this a number of times that once you ask for the flight attendant's name, there's a good chance you're being kicked off the airplane.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right. Any other wonderful tips that you might have to somebody who is flying? Obviously, read the terms of the conditions in the back of the ticket, but just use your good common sense. Anything with luggage, anything else that you think that you...
Sure. One thing that a lot of people don't know is the airlines have a limit of liability of $3,500 on your luggage if it's lost. And again, that contracted carriage has a host, like 50 different things of exclusions that are not covered. Jewelry is one. Any type of, anything of value, they're exempted from liability for it. And so it's important, if you have that kind of stuff, if it's things you can't be without, your best bet is to put it on your carry-on. Keep it on your person.
I could keep you here all night. But we have to take a quick break. But don't worry, we'll be back with more Today's Verdict right after this.
Hey, I'm Aaron Hernandez. I'm the host of Wednesdays Open right here on BronxNet Television, Channel 67, and also on Verizon Files, Channel 33. Want to invite you every Wednesday. You get an opportunity to see what's going on in the world of news, current events, debates, public information. That's what happens here on Open every Wednesday. So we invite you to join us right here on BronxNet Television.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Fancy pants peanut butter?
A big screen television. You haven't even bought a sofa yet.
A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to Today's Verdict. I'm your host, David Lesh. We are always encouraging you to stay connected. Tweet us at Today's Verdict. Football player Aaron Hernandez was charged with 2 murders in 2012 and was serving life for the murder of Odin Lloyd in 2013. Sadly, he was found dead in his prison cell a few days ago. It has not yet been confirmed if it was really was a suicide or if it was something else that caused his death. And what are the rights of those who take under the estate? Well, joining us today is a criminal attorney, Stephen Lynch. I think most of us were shocked. He looked like he beat one of the cases in court. Mm-hmm. Didn't seem like this would be the time to take your own life. Am I wrong?
I mean, no, not at all. I think that the red flags that most suicide protocols would look at to prevent weren't present. He's somebody who, by all accounts, should have been happy. He just beat this very serious murder charge, and hopefully was going to be able to appeal the first conviction. Didn't have any signs of mental illness. His attorneys, his loved ones, no one seemed to think that he was at risk for taking his own life.
Well, what are the protocols? Like what should the warden and the staff of a jail be looking for when they think that somebody could do something like this?
Well, pretty much every correctional facility, when they have a new inmate come in, they're going to do both a physical and mental examination, and they're going to look for somebody who has expressed the desire to harm themselves. Most people, before they take their own lives, are going to say something that would lead you to believe that's going to happen. It's not necessarily a surprise.
Not out of the blue.
No, not at all.
And let's say this person seems a little unbalanced. Mm-hmm. Does he get psychological counseling while he's in the prison? Is it once a week, once a day? How does that work?
Well, look, it's a challenging environment, to say the least. Most correctional facilities are going to have some sort of mental health treatment, but frequently they're very flawed. There have been very horrible incidents in Rikers Island here, and a lot of times even the facilities that do have some kind of mental health treatment are very lacking and don't provide the level of care one would hope.
And you're not supposed to have any type of means to be able to take your own life. Well, I mean, you're not supposed to be able to hang yourself from a bed sheet. There's not supposed to be something, right, to tie it in. Am I wrong?
Well, it just doesn't take that much to take your own life, unfortunately. And prisoners have a lot of time and a lot of will to accomplish what they want. And you can't watch people 24 hours a day, especially somebody who you don't anticipate is going to harm themselves.
What are some of the other rights that a prisoner would normally have when they go through the gate? And what do you see in your line of work that seems to be the biggest offense with respect to those who are incarcerated?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that unfortunately you lose a lot of rights when you're incarcerated. And one of the things that we've been seeing over and over is how horrible the conditions of confinement are. In terms of my own practice, people go to jail for too many reasons, I would say. I think that one of the things our nation is finally addressing is the over-incarceration of people. And I think that what we need to realize is the people we should be locking up and putting in jail are people who are dangerous. And I think that too often our society puts people in jail who we're simply mad at or unhappy with their behavior in a general sense.
And what would you do with those particular individuals? Would you put them community service? Would you, because evidently they're being convicted and they end up going through the system. How would you address some of those individuals?
Yeah, I think that the first step that we could take is to end the war on drugs. I think that's something that almost everyone would agree it's time to change. You know, we've been doing this for 50 years now, and we filled our prisons with nonviolent people for drug offenses, and it's really something that I think a lot of people could agree should end.
I think are we making some headway with the Rockefeller drug laws, or is it not really
it is getting better. The Rockefeller reforms helped end some of the longer prison sentences, but there's still a lot of people who are arrested and prosecuted and receive long prison sentences.
And certainly, you know, in the Bronx, you wait around such a long time just to get a trial and if you can't make bail, which many people cannot, they sit around for 6 months, almost a year sometimes, before they finally even get a date, maybe even longer. That can't be good, obviously, for your mental health and could lead to possible suicides down the line. All right, so you have an unfortunate incident now with this person who's taken his life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is there a lawsuit? Who has the lawsuit? A lot of different lawsuits here, right?
Absolutely. The lawyers are going to be busy with the Aaron Hernandez case for a long time. Yes. You have the fact that under Massachusetts law, as a result of his suicide, that his murder conviction for Odin Lloyd is now going to be overturned. So there's going to be a dispute between his estate and the Patriots in terms of what is due under his past contracts. He had a $40 million contract, so how much of that money would be paid now?
So let me get this straight.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, he's not considered to be convicted.
That's my understanding, yes.
Of anything.
Right.
All right. So no conviction, I get paid my contract, right? I'm owed $40 million. The estate wants the money. Where would that money go to? If, let's say, he didn't have a will.
Well, my understanding is whatever the Patriots owe him is going to go to his daughter. That's who it sounds like is the beneficiary of his estate. Of course, Odin Lloyd's family is going to have a wrongful death lawsuit against the estate as well. So that's going to be another aspect of the lawsuits in terms of Aaron Hernandez.
But Odin Lloyd's family will still have to prove the wrongful death case. Am I correct?
That's my understanding.
And how are they going to do that without a defendant who's alive? But I guess they could use evidence from the criminal trial maybe to do that.
Right. It sounds like the Odin Lloyd murder really relied on a lot of circumstantial evidence. So all that evidence is going to come back into play, and they're going to start from square one.
Let's say he did not commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And would there still have been a wrongful death action? Because would he necessarily have gotten paid the remainder of his contract? In other words, would he still have gotten the remainder of his contract if he wasn't convicted? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, it sounds like the contract was broken by the Patriots after the arrest for the Odin Lloyd murder. So the question would be, what's left in the estate? You know, It could very well be that Odin Lloyd's family gets a verdict or a judgment against the Hernandez estate, but if there's no money there, then they might never be able to collect.
Be able to collect. All right. Let's get back to the prison, because this is really what a lot of people want to know. Certainly viewers who have loved ones who are incarcerated throughout New York and just throughout the nation. Mm-hmm. Some of the rights. Tell me some of the rights that they have once. First of all, that the prisoners have with respect to hygiene, medical treatment, maybe having a loved one come and any type of relationships. What are some of the rights there?
Well, I mean, like I said, unfortunately, you lose a great many rights when you're incarcerated. The real limit is cruel and unusual punishment. Prisoners in the United States live under very horrible conditions. And even the few rights that they have are very difficult to enforce, because the ability for attorneys to bring lawsuits on behalf of inmates and then collect attorney's fees has been taken away and diminished. So if you are a prisoner in the United States, you have very few rights, and it's very difficult to enforce them.
Now, I've seen, in my practice, I have seen instances where actions are brought against the city of New York, or if it's a Rikers Island issue, or what types of issues do you see in terms of lawsuits in your practice?
well, you see negligence, you see intentional torts. You see if a corrections officer beats up and harms an inmate, obviously they can bring a lawsuit. And if during your time when you're incarcerated, if you're injured based on the conditions of your confinement, then you could bring a lawsuit.
Where do you find that you're prevented from getting the discovery that you need to be able to protect some of the inmates? Obviously, there's video footage that you'd want, but maybe there are pictures of the different locks that they'll want to give you. How do you go about getting the discovery that you need?
Well, I mean, in any civil action, you're going to make a discovery request, and if the city doesn't turn it over, you're going to get the court involved and demand that they produce what you're entitled to.
Because I find many times it's just fighting an uphill battle to get the different things that you need. Just getting into Rikers and meeting with the inmate can take weeks, if not longer.
It's very difficult.
Very, very difficult. Some final thoughts with respect to the suicide and Aaron Hernandez and just the state. I mean, 'cause it's really disheartening for most of us who've seen this occur, because he looked like he was kind of getting through it. At least when he was in the courtroom, it looked like this wasn't going to be somebody who takes his life.
Yeah, the whole case is very tragic. You have somebody who had fame and had fortune and, really threw it all away for no good reason. It's very difficult to make sense of a situation like this.
Do you think his sexuality had anything to do with it? Because it has been coming out now that he may have been bisexual, or is that not really something that had anything to do with it?
There's speculation that Odin Lloyd knew of his bisexuality and that he was murdered to prevent Odin Lloyd telling Aaron Hernandez's wife about his sexuality. So, we may never know, but that is one of the theories. To me, it's very sad that now in 2017 that someone's sexuality is something that they had to hide so deeply and potentially murder someone over.
Completely agreed. By the way, where do we find you if we need to get a hold of you?
You can call me. My phone number is 212-498-9494.
Okay, and you'll come back another time?
Anytime.
That's what I like. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us and, of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of tonight's show, be sure to check it out at www.BronxNet.tv. Also, remember, if there is a legal issue or topic you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at David Lesh or tweet us at Today's Verdict, and make sure to hashtag Ask Today's Verdict. For myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. We'll see you next time.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.